Okay, maybe we should start just, if everybody just could stand up just for 1 second, because I was really, it was nice to get up. Let's get some blood flowing. There you go. Thank you so much. And then you can just sit down again. So, then I would like you guys to close your eyes, all of you. Just a little nap, so please close your eyes. Don't be afraid, we're 200 people. So imagine the world with no resource scarcity, where our behavior doesn't have a negative impact on our climate, where waste doesn't exist, where sustainability and growth are each other's prerequisites. To me, that world is real. Thank you. You can open your eyes. Luxurious, quality, handmade design made out of endless amounts of scrap at your local landfill. That doesn't exactly sound like your traditional premium product design that we do today. Our mission is that in a not too distant future, it will be. Traditionally, many of our concepts around sustainability, such as industrial ecology, has looked at the world from a perspective of resource scarcity and limits to our resources, making limited competition a key part of their perspective. We see it very differently. Instead, our thesis is that we have all the resources that we need. What needs to change is how we use and value them. Design the world of tomorrow with the waste of today. In other words, we need to start valuing all the resources that we have today and currently disregarding as waste and start using them as the resources that they really are. My name is Anders Lendager, and I'm probably the only not professor here today speaking. I don't know what happened. I'm the founder of Lendager Group. It's a company that started only 5 years ago. And it's a company where sustainability and growth are each other's prerequisites and very important for us. I am beyond honored to be here today at this symposium, I must say, to address the future of green architecture and to celebrate the 10 years mark of the Master in Architecture and Environment. A little over 10 years ago, I submitted my own architectural thesis, which was a research base investigating climate change packing on the South Pole. This became the beginning of my quest for a more sustainable world. 10 years ago, I started pushing boundaries to explore sustainable architecture, and today I'm leading one of the most sustainable architectural studios in Denmark, which I founded in 2011. We have given up the usual business model in the built environment and created a new business model based on circular economy. We operate as a nexus organization towards the circular economy. We generate solutions for the built industry that meets some of the challenges facing mankind. We do this at the nexus of architecture and planning, which is one of our companies, upcycling and product developments, where we actually make materials and products that we use in our buildings. And we also do strategies and analysis for organizations, both within the built environment and outside, as IKEA and Nike. To create synergies between these three areas is our guiding star, to make a disruption within architecture and building. These are just some of the images of when an architect do an organizational diagram. This is the growth that we've had within the 2 years we've been doing this, which means that we have become 40 people just working with sustainable architecture and circular economy. The best way to predict the future is, to create it yourself. These are the words of Peter Diamandis, the co-founder of Singularity University in the US. And we couldn't agree more. And it is exactly what we do, using architecture and design as tools to find new ways of making dreams come true and designing the future that we want and the next generations, as you are, will need to do. So why do we do what we do? Quite simple, the answer is we had to and we have to. The issues that we are addressing today is too important to our planet, our society, and for each one of us personally and the coming generations. It is vital to change the rules of the game, and 2 global trends are calling for action, as we heard earlier today as well. The world as we know it is changing. Digitalization, globalization, urbanization, the 4th industrial revolution, and not least climate change, is transforming the world as we know it. Our global population and middle class is growing, and the demand for food and electricity and housing is really on the rise. Our climate is also changing, rapidly that is, and these changes are closely related. At the moment, more consumption, more traffic, and more buildings, as we heard earlier today, equals more climate change. What we see is a world with an abundance of already existing building materials, concrete, brick, wood, plastic, glass, and metal, that can be recirculated and become new materials with new functions and increased value. In other words, looking at waste as a resource will change the game for good. And I can let you in on a secret, it is good business. And I will show you why it's good business. In this lecture, I will show you what we do, and we ask you to join us on this transformational journey for our society and planet. I hope to enhance that change doesn't have to be a bad thing. On the contrary, it can be a very, very good thing. Bringing about increased sustainability, livability, and social cohesion. In the spirit of UN Sustainability Development Goals as well. Modern city stands as a proof of mankind's great achievements, raised, renovated, and expanded in a time of seemingly infinite resources and production possibilities. Old and natural has been replaced with new and artificial, and what used to be local is now global. We see the built environment as part of the solution through the means of innovation and interdisciplinary collaborations. Buildings and cities can help mitigate the massive global change we are facing. Innovation leads to consumption, that leads to growth, which results in infinite amounts of waste. We need to shift from this linear mindset to generate the growth that can incentivize a circular economy. Now try to imagine how much we could cut down our total CO2 emissions if we reached for the stars and employed these principles of circular economy in manufacturing and the built environment on a global scale. An interesting diagram here from systemic growth within that actually shows GDP rising and CO2 falling. In the OECD countries alone, it would mean a reduction of 479,000 tons of CO2. That's more than 12 times the amount of Denmark's total emissions. Even though it's a very small country, we emit the most. So how is the value chain changing? The demolisher used to be the last person an architect would ever call. It would imply that you needed a building to be taken down. Today, the demolisher is my creative partner and the first one I call because they have the resources. So is this mega problems or is this mega potentials? For us, we needed to support our creative partnerships with demolishers and other in the value chain. We have conducted a manifest. Imagine the myriad of possibilities we have for reaching out for the stars and upcycling our resources to the highest value possible, making sure that our buildings becomes part of the solution to our global challenge, not the problem they are today. I will take you through a couple of them. The built environment must enable growth, carbon reduction, and local jobs by recycling resources to the highest possible value. Waste is more. The built environment must not compromise on price, aesthetics, or functionality by doing so. Local is global. The built environment must utilize local resources and create global processes. The city is nature. The built environment must respect and enhance biodiversity of the surroundings and surrounding environment and become a harvesting landscape. The built environment must connect buildings that contribute and interact with the rest of the energy systems. We have all the energy we need. Let's be smart and use it. We kicked off this year by curating an exhibition at the Danish Architecture Center. The exhibition was called Wasteland, and it is our sustainable world of tomorrow. Upon entrance in the exhibition, you will be met with this monolith of upcycled concrete. It refers to a movie classic, A Space Odyssey, from 1968 by Stanley Kubrick, where the monolith is a symbol for the beginning of the evolution. Our hope in Wasteland was that the monolith would symbolize the new resource evolution and revolution. Wasteland shows how innovation and interdisciplinary collaboration can help alleviate the climate changes facing mankind. You will experience the most commonly used building materials, concrete, brick, wood, plastic, glass, and metal, and see how they can be upcycled to new materials with new designs and increased value. In that way, local is indeed global. We have already all the resources we need available. There is no need for this extensive use of virgin materials transported from afar. Arc Daily did a review of the exhibition where they noted that a thorough architectural response toward a growing problem of population, climate, and urban migration. Wasteland is full of treasures waiting to be swept up by open-minded visitors. The first case I'm going to show is this one. It's concrete. We see it day in and day out, all over our urban cities. Building on the rise of the industrialization. Concrete is the physical manifestation of our modern way of life, and as such, a testament to a better way of life. We rarely pay attention to it, it's just there. And if we do notice it, it's most likely not always to be a happy encounter. In fact, imagine waking up, realizing that across from your building, there would be a 5-story high concrete building. For most, this would be a nightmare. It happened to Astrid, a girl living and taking this picture in front of her apartment. And while it might normally have been perceived as a nightmare, it wasn't in this case. A new concrete building was being built right across from her apartment on Prags Boulevard, middle of Copenhagen. This building, however, is not made out of regular concrete. Instead, it's built out of upcycled concrete on the principles that city is nature and waste is more. The result, a forestry scenery in the middle of Copenhagen, built not using new materials transported from afar, but instead using all the materials on the site. Why, one might ask? Because with the exception of water, concrete is the most commonly used material in the world. It has been that for a very long time, and global trends suggest that it will maintain so in the future, with concrete already being responsible for 5% of the total CO2 emission globally. This is a challenge we need to solve. Not only to decrease the 5%, but more importantly to ensure that emissions does not increase, as the need for the building and concrete increases. It's estimated that 60% of the buildings need to handle the current level of growth and urbanization haven't been built yet. And furthermore, it took only 3 years from 2011 to 2013 for China to use more concrete than the US did in the 20th century. In short, it's time to reverse the curve and break the bonds between emission and growth. With this growing demand, we need to make a concerted effort to ensure that the bond between emission and growth is indeed broken, and instead show that the way to sustainability-led growth decoupled from emissions and materialization. Because make no mistake, while this is indeed a challenge and an obstacle for a prosperous world, it is also an opportunity to create incredible, impactful, sustainability-led growth. As Astrid experienced while learning that the new building across from her window is a testament to this. Imagine if we could use these 3,000 tons of concrete from the old building to build a new warehouse, as we did here. That is exactly it. Creating a new type of concrete, an upcycled concrete version that could be made out of the old building and reused to make the new one, giving new value to material that would otherwise have been downcycled and lose both economically and naturally. As in Denmark today, we are actually recycling 95% of all concrete, but we throw it in the roads. Instead, we could use it for something else and use it for the buildings. We have developed Denmark's first circular building site and at a unique upcycled concrete that makes it possible for us to pour the new foundation, the walls, the ground decks, and using 100% of the recycled aggregates, and to cast elements from defective castings using 80% of this. This result being not just a storage facility, but a forestry scenery and urban nature made out of 100% upcycled concrete, sourced locally and produced on the spot in a circular-based building site, with facades that can change colors with the seasons, with urban gardens for the locals to use, and a co-creation space for entrepreneurs. It enhances biodiversity and which reduces emissions by using 2,900 tons of this waste to upcycle concrete on the building site. We succeeded in a CO2 emission to lower it by 40%, which corresponds to a global CO2 emission reduction of 24% of the total emissions in the built environment. And the upcycled concrete is produced at the same price as the competitor's concrete, which is really interesting. To us, this is a holistic sustainability that connects birds with concrete, local with the people living in the area and the community. Recycling and upcycling of materials is a better investment and generates a generous architecture. And at Lendager Group, we use waste as a competitive resource because we believe that it can affect the construction industry and the investors. We make a virtue of ensuring optimal utilization of already extracted resources. And we designed the storage to make it possible for moss, the storage building, to make it possible for moss to grow on the concrete, which absorbs CO2 and produces oxygen. And it will make the city more green. We hope that this will result in more birds in Copenhagen, which we don't have much of today. People like Astrid biking past the building site have made notice of this tree building growing up in Copenhagen. In another part of Copenhagen, we were asked to create Northern Europe's most sustainable office building together with Foster and Partners. Imagine what you could do with the 181,000 tons of wood that we are currently burning in Denmark. We are very good at burning things in Denmark. The textiles, the plastic bottles, old tires, and all the concrete could be part of developing new materials for this building. Now imagine an office building where wood is used instead of glass and aluminum, sails are used instead of reinforced glass, acoustic panels made out of plastic instead of melted stone. The possibilities are endless. And all of a sudden this became a matter of making a building a prime example of sustainability and sustainable architecture. We went into this task with the sole purpose of creating sustainable improvements that could be evident in the building. We used wood from old windows from the 80s and 90s without PCB and lead. We also used them because they are really ugly. And when things are really ugly, they are free and you actually get paid to take them. As an architect, we have to master the art in transforming ugly things into beautiful materials. And that's what we want to do. It is imperative to master this art, otherwise we would see too many valuable materials ending up as landfill. For this smaller project, we reused a lot of materials. We saved 60 kilometers of wood, we created 28 jobs, We saved 1/3 of the CO2 emission planned, and we did it with a margin. Plastic currently comprise of 12% of the total waste collected from Danish homes. At Lendager Group, we developed these acoustic ceilings where PET bottles becomes acoustic ceilings instead of what we use today, which is stone that we melt. For every kilogram of plastic reused, the environment is spared for 1.5 kilograms of CO2. This is why it makes such good sense to use it. Another example is this: seeing the beautiful and useful in the recycled resources open a whole new world of materials. In this case, it's America's Cup sails that are made of carbon fiber. They are priced at 3,500 euros a square meter and used for 50 turns, and then it's waste. In this case, we got it for free. Another project that we are doing right now is Værkstedet in Malmö. This area you see right here is called Værkstedet. It's the heart of the industrial production and innovation in Malmö for more than 100 years due to the shipyard Kokum. At one time, the shipyard was Malmö's largest place of work and had the world's largest cranes that could be seen all the way from Copenhagen in Denmark. Now it's facing a radical change. To understand the potential in rethinking Værkstedet, we first had to analyze the development plan and thoroughly understand the context. The findings revealed, as so many times before, that the original development plan left much to be desired in terms of sustainability and materials. And there was an urgent need for a more holistic approach. Rather than seeing the up to 40-meter high warehouse that you see here as a problematic structure, we converted it into a material library, using all the coming demolishing buildings to be put into this building as a library for materials. A material catalog was made to map out all the materials resources on the basis of CO2 it would reduce, the reuse potential, and the price present in Værkstedet. The aim is to build the new Værkstedet out of the old. The idea was to generate a future-proof sustainability strategy that would be value-based, not caught up in a rigid certification or checklist. A strategy that would adapt and evolve over time, maintaining its relevance in the long run. The ultimate goal is to shift from a linear city based on the take, make, dispose model towards a circular city in which resources are recirculated and the waste products is one system becomes input to the next. To kickstart this transition, we make use of lighthouse projects. The lighthouse projects becomes the guiding stars of sustainable change. Imagine water as a mean of purification and social interaction. Imagine innovation in building practices through the upcycling of materials. Imagine a revolution of health and nutrients though increasing awareness of the food value chain. And what if you could transform the harborscape into a multi-use space for educational and recreational? And you could create a future-proof parking garage that generates power for its residents and surroundings. Up Gardens that you see here is one of the first lighthouses that we're doing today. Just imagine this big building that can be disassembled and create a 6-story high alumni garden. By disassembling the old building and direct reusing all the materials, we can create a beautiful garden that lifts the area, and we also preserve all the cultural identity, which is so important. With this project, there is an extensive focus on biodiversity and materials, making use of the area's own materials to create a unique building that stands as a shining beacon of the possibility of local recycling and harvesting, disassembly and reassembly of building materials. When creating the future of urban areas, it is vital to make cities livable for the residents. Urbanization is a current trend and brings potentials as well as challenges. People are moving away from rural areas and towards the big cities. which are steadily growing as we know it. This creates new exciting residential developments in and around the big cities. But what happens to the empty homes, we might ask? When houses aren't resold, they are often left to decay and ultimately getting demolished. This results in large amounts of waste materials. In Denmark alone, there are 60,000 empty homes. In China, there is 7 million. Just imagine if you could live in the city in a building made of upcycled brick elements, upcycled concrete, waste wood, glass, and steel. Imagine if your house produced energy, collected water, produced greens, and has shared cars, bikes, tools, crops, spaces, and creates 80% CO2 saving over a lifetime of the building, created new jobs, and didn't cost more than the neighbor building. This is the case for this project that we are starting to build right now. It's called the Resource Rose and will be Denmark's first residential area built out of materials from waste and demolished buildings and houses. We just got the building permit and starts in a month. So where do we start? Well, we just started cutting brick facades out of empty buildings. That would be one place to start. Since the 16th, the mortar used for masonry has become stronger than the brick itself, which makes it difficult to recycle individual bricks. Therefore, it has recycled bricks to a lower value in the smaller pieces that we use for road materials. This process, as you know it, is called downcycling. At Lendager Group, we have developed a method that breaks with downcycling of brick use. By designing and cutting entire brick models out, like you can see here, they can be used as building materials for new buildings while preserving the true value of the brick. And I can let you in on a secret that it takes 1 minute and 48 seconds to create 1 square meters of brick by cutting it out. The first mock-up here was a school that was taken down. It could be the gymnasium we heard about earlier. The second one, which is the last one, is this one, which is an old coal power plant, which makes sense to cut that down. By reusing the wall from the abandoned houses to the new facade component, you have saved CO2 and raw materials, and you also got the new building a history and character. And the upcycling aspect makes Resources Row a pioneer project in the construction industry. The guiding star in this building project has been to conduct the first residential area built by the materials from abandoned homes. Far away from the city lights and traffic noise in the woods of Sweden, a permaculture farm with a restaurant, a cabin will open very soon. Imagine the lush forest, a cerulean blue water, and a view to your dinner in a restaurant. This view adds a whole new dimension to the saying, a room with a view. A married couple wanted to build something on the basis of the idea of giving more than we take. Not only is this their guiding star, it's also the foundation of their business. Together with the couple, we have generated ideas and designs for how we use the lush settings to create a playground for a self-sufficient lab of tomorrow, where nothing goes to waste. By the cerulean water, you will get a spectacle view of the bay, the wide, open landscape, and fill your lungs with fresh air. The mere thought of this ought to make you emit a life-sustaining breath. Imagine a day in the deep forest where you get to navigate every little nook of the scenery, from walking between the trees, taking in how the natural light is cast upon them, to see how the shadows are dancing in the lush forest. Now imagine colors of seasons changing. In this oasis deep in the forest, everything is in sync. From seasons to plate, from plate to people, and from people to people. This is our vision and design for Stedsense, which is called the sense of the site in the woods, which is a restaurant and a home, with a kitchen and a laboratory, and the forest is the restaurant. That is where they harvest everything that you get on your plate in the restaurant. And the cabins are in the air, on the earth, and on the water as natural elements. The cabins for the guests will be built with upcycled materials that have been sourced in the woods. Waste wood will be used as construction materials, rammed earth will be used to make walls, old barns that there are many of in Sweden will be locally harvested and transformed into mega greenhouses and tent structures made out of glass from abandoned industrial greenhouses. In the cabin there is no electricity, no internet, no CO2 emissions, only from your breath, and the trees love you for it. And who needs an alarm clock in the cabin? You can wake up in sync with the sunbeams and sun rays through the glass in the glass windows. And your natural self is connecting with the rhythm of nature. We have designed this glass house, the part they call the third room, which is an 800 square meters greenhouse placed in the forest by the lake. The idea is to have the forest floor as the floor inside the house. This will be heated by the sun and by hot air from the rocket oven. And with Nordic climate seasons, it's possible to grow food all year for the restaurant. So what is unique here, you might think? I would say everything. The local harvested materials and ingredients create a harmony and a sphere that indicates the power of nature and architecture together by giving more than we take. This is also what the cities of tomorrow will have to do. Now I will take you from Stedsands in the woods to Sweden, to the pulsating city of Copenhagen, where we have received another building. In less than a month, we will begin this building of the first circular homes in Copenhagen. The time is accelerating and new technologies are emerging. All of this is changing our societies and breaking with custom. The prevalence of the entrepreneurial spirit is, for instance, breaking with the work rhythms of 9 to 5. And more people in today's metropolis are learning on concepts such as flexibility, symbiosis, shared economy, and resource efficiency to support and structure their everyday lives. So how can the shared economy manifest itself in the physical space? Imagine a house where all rooms are designed to make everyday tasks easier. Imagine if you could design a home so it provides a spacious experience, so it promotes a sense of health, and where all the elements of the house helps to promote sustainability and sustainable living, and can help create a good indoor climate. We started by looking into yesterday's waste library. How could we find the right materials to bring our vision to life? We started by implementing different designs and built measures to explore how we could create a circular home. One of the first materials that got to us a step closer in the design phase was glass. The windows in the facades will be made out of two-layered recycled double glazing, thermoglass, the glass that we always throw out and crush. That can be reused directly and create energy-efficient windows, as you see. Biodiversity in the neighborhood increases with the roof gardens, which allows each house to produce fruits and greens and save almost €1,000 per house unit. Groundwater for toilet wash is replaced with rainwater collected from the solar cells on the top of the townhouses. Actually, Upcycling Studios reduces the CO2 emission over 50 years with 84% CO2. This is not only making the circular homes of tomorrow, but it's also becoming a pioneer project. And the interesting part is that it doesn't cost anything more to do it and build it this way. Upcycling Studio combines the prevailing trends and offers a brand new home typology for the resource-conscious Copenhagener. If we are to succeed with this massive and systemic transformation, it takes a collective change of mindset. And if we really want wasteland or want the future to be the sustainable world of tomorrow, we need a change of mindset for all of us, not just architects and the built environment, but also for businesses, politicians, and citizens at large. In our work, we try to enable that change in mindset by using detailed examples that to show you that things can in fact be done differently, and that consumption and livability doesn't have to be at the expense of the environment. Because at the end of the day, talks and speeches as this one, can be vulnerable. And what we really need is something beyond that. We really need action. And we need to see buildings result in incentivized sustainability development. In Lendager Group, we think we do just that. And it's vital for us to make our building projects transparent so that it's obvious to everyone that what we are in this together and that the sustainable world of tomorrow is only realizable when we work across the value chain. This mindset fosters sustainable development and enables circular economy. I hope some of our ongoing projects have inspired you. And I hope this goes to show that we need another 10 years of studying at this program. If you ask me, you don't need to wait for 2067 to see the result. You can build the future today. I would like to show you a last thing here, a video of the project that became a catalyst for change for the working environment and upcycling for Lendager Group.
What if I told you that we have all the resources that we need to build new cities and new buildings, and the resources that we need to use is based on waste? My name is Lendager. I'm the CEO of Lendager Group. We pioneer within sustainability, circular economy, and resource efficiency. The house we stand in now is Upcycling House. It's one of our first houses that's based on this ideology. Upcycle House is made out of 90% upcycled materials. Some of the really interesting materials here is that we have facades made out of compressed paper. So newspaper is becoming an exterior facade.
Thank you very much.